There comes a moment when the noise around you finally fades, and what remains is an unsettling kind of shame. Not the shame that comes from doing something wrong, but the deeper kind. The kind that comes from doing nothing at all. Stay with me, because by the end of this, you'll understand why Carl Jung believed your so-called lazy self isn't lazy. It's exiled, and more than anything, it's longing to return home. We rarely talk about what it really does to the soul to break the same promise to yourself over and over again. To whisper, "I'll do it tomorrow," all while knowing tomorrow never really comes. To look into the mirror and feel a subtle but painful resentment. Not because you hate who you see, but because you no longer believe him. You keep telling yourself you'll change, you'll begin, and for a moment you truly believe it. But then morning arrives, and the man who made that vow is gone, replaced by the same tired face, the same scrolling, the same hiding. Carl Jung once said, "People will do anything, no matter how absurd, to avoid facing their own soul." And maybe that's what this is. Not just procrastination, but a quiet rejection of your future self. Maybe avoiding discipline is a form of self-betrayal. Because here's the truth. The version of you that feels tired, distracted, and unfocused is not who you are. It's who you've rehearsed. If something about this is already stirring something deep within you, don't just watch, subscribe. Because this channel exists for the parts of you no one ever talks to. You've been taught that discipline is about effort, about pushing harder. But that's not true. Discipline isn't effort. Discipline is identity. You won't become disciplined by trying harder. You'll become disciplined the moment you stop identifying as someone who needs to become it. That may sound strange, but stay with me. Because when you understand this, the war you fight every morning will begin to make sense. Jung believed most people never truly become who they are. Not because they don't try, but because they never meet their own potential. They chase change as if it's something outside of them. A new job, a different routine, another motivational video. But what if you don't need more? What if you need less? Less escape, less noise, less hiding from the one thing you've always feared most: responsibility. This isn't about responsibility to your boss, your family, or anyone else. This is about something far more sacred. Your responsibility to who you're meant to become. The quiet contract between the man you are now and the man you were always supposed to be. That's where discipline truly lives. Not in to-do lists or forcing yourself out of bed at 5 a.m., but in devotion, a deeper alignment with your purpose. Think about it. When was the last time you felt truly alive? It wasn't during comfort or pleasure. It wasn't while resting. It was in the moments when your actions matched your words, when you followed through, when you did something you never thought you could. That moment wasn't just pride. It was integrity. And Jung would tell you, that feeling was no accident. Your psyche craves unity. It wants your actions and your values to line up. The more you say one thing but do another, the more your subconscious starts to rebel. That resistance you feel? It's not laziness. It's your mind revolting against the false version of you that you're pretending to be. This is the truth most people miss. Lack of discipline isn't the root problem. It's a symptom of a split soul. You've been divided for years. One part of you sets goals, the other part quietly sabotages them. One side dreams of building something real. The other quietly wishes to disappear. And every time you let that happen, every day you repeat that cycle, you're not just wasting time, you're deepening that fracture. Carl Jung warned us, what you resist persists. The parts of yourself you suppress don't vanish. They wait. They turn into your shadow. Not just your flaws or fears, but the powerful version of you. The disciplined one, the ambitious one, the sharp, structured, focused self that you locked away because of fear. Fear of failure, or worse, fear of what you're truly capable of. Yes, your strength. That's the part you're most afraid to face, isn't it? Because the moment you fully commit to discipline, there's no one left to blame. You can't hide behind potential anymore. You can't say, one day. You'll be forced to become living proof. And that's what makes it so terrifying. Because once you become living proof, once your life becomes the evidence, you can't hide from your destiny anymore. There's no middle ground. You're either rising or you're fading, and the world will witness every step. But here's the truth no one wants to admit. You're already fading. Not in some dramatic way, but slowly, silently, every time you betray your own schedule. Every time you abandon the priorities you once promised to keep. Every time you hit snooze, scroll through distractions, and trade self-respect for a few seconds of shallow pleasure. You don't feel exhausted because you're overworked. You feel drained because of guilt, because deep down, in a place you rarely visit, you know, this version of you isn't who you were born to be. And I want you to hear this part. Not with your ears, but with your bones. Discipline isn't something you simply add to your life. It's your soul's immune system. It protects you from decay, from regret, from becoming a man who appears to have everything, except himself. So when something in this message hits you deep, drop a comment. Not for me, but for the one still fighting a battle you've just begun to understand. Sometimes your words become their lifeline. And now I need you to remember something. There was a time, before the burnout, before the noise, before the doubts, when you truly wanted this. You wanted to rise early. You wanted to focus. You wanted to be better. Your spirit hasn't forgotten. It's been waiting, quietly, patiently, for you to come back to that sacred fire, to return to the forge where discipline was once born inside you. We'll get there. We'll reignite it. But not just yet. First, we have to dig deeper. We need to go back to the root, to where your undisciplined self first took shape. We need to understand why you resist structure, why you sabotage progress, and how Carl Jung's theory of archetypes uncovers the buried identity that's been quietly dismantling every effort you've made. This isn't some hype-fueled motivational talk. This is real transformation. And once you see it, you'll never unsee it. Because here's the hard truth. You didn't become undisciplined by chance. It wasn't a single decision. You were trained over time by 1,000 quiet betrayals. Some were inflicted by the world, others by you. And eventually, you internalized a story. That you're the kind of person who always almost does it. Someone who gets close. Someone with potential that never fully arrives. But that story, it's not who you are. It's a survival mask. One built from fear, from rejection, from wounds so subtle no one else noticed. And now, years later, that same mask has hardened into your identity. Carl Jung once said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate." So let's do exactly that. Let's bring it into the light, not to relive the past, but to finally understand it. Think back. Do you remember the first time your sense of discipline was punished? Maybe you spoke up and were shut down. Maybe you got excited about something and someone laughed. Maybe you tried to build something small, followed a routine, stuck to a goal, and someone you trusted tore it apart like it was meaningless. That's when the fracture begins. Not because you were lazy, but because it hurt. And here's the cruel twist. The part of you that craves structure, focus, control, the disciplined self, is also the most fragile. Because to be disciplined, you have to believe in yourself. You need faith in your own power. And if that belief was shattered early in life, that disciplined self didn't die. It went into hiding. Jung called this the repression of the noble archetype. The king, the warrior, the builder. The part of your psyche that wants to lead, to build, to master your time and energy. He's still in there, but twisted by years of quiet defeat. He doesn't stand tall anymore. He waits in the dark, not destroyed, just forgotten. So now, every time you try to start something, a new habit, a clean diet, a focused routine, it's not a clean slate, and you're not starting from zero. You're confronting every invisible voice that ever whispered, "You'll quit again." You never finish what you start. You're not the kind of person who can change. And if you don't realize this, you'll keep sabotaging your own efforts. Not because you want to fail, but because some part of you still believes you have to. That's the deep insight Jung left us with. Your outer failures aren't always about effort. They're about identity. You can't outwork a self-image that conflicts with the very thing you're trying to become. You'll always fall back into the arms of the man you believe you are, no matter how many tools or systems you try. So the question becomes, how do you shift that belief? Not with cheap affirmations, not with hype or surface-level motivation, but through integration, by finally calling that exiled part of you back home. Let's go deeper. Picture two men living inside you. One craves power, legacy, structure. He is calm, grounded, sovereign. He honors his word even when no one's watching. He thrives in alignment, discipline, and vision. The other, he seeks ease, comfort, invisibility. He avoids risk, shuns intensity, and retreats from any challenge that could wound him. He doesn't want to win, he just wants to feel safe. But these two men aren't enemies. They're not opposites. They are fractured reflections of the same person, you. And the more you try to destroy one, the more you damage your own wholeness. You have to stop trying to kill the lazy, fearful part of yourself. You have to reclaim him, sit with him, ask him, "What are you protecting me from?" Because believe it or not, he's not sabotaging you out of malice. He's shielding you from shame, from failure, from that one moment when someone laughed or walked away or misunderstood your effort and made you regret ever trying. That's the pain he's trying to keep you from reliving. But once you understand this, discipline transforms. It's no longer a fight. It becomes sacred. A return, not to effort, but to the throne you abandoned, to the center of your own psyche, where the king archetype still sits, silent, patient, not waiting to control you, but to stabilize you. Jung believed every man must eventually meet this inner king. And when he does, everything changes. You stop performing. You stop seeking permission. You begin to structure your life, not to gain approval, but to reflect the quiet order you've rebuilt within. This is what real discipline is. It's not just about waking up early or checking boxes. It's psychological architecture, the outer framework of a reorganized soul. When a man loses discipline, he doesn't just become unproductive. He loses a piece of his identity. That's why the shame of being undisciplined lingers even in silence. It's not just about the work you didn't do. It's about the man you're afraid you're turning into. Because when the self is fractured, when the builder, the warrior, the father, the inner guide are all lost, you begin to search for motivation, like a starving man searches for scraps. But it never comes. And here's the truth no one tells you. You were never meant to depend on motivation. You weren't meant to constantly chase motivation. You were meant to remember, to wake up, to move through your day as a man who has already decided, this is who I am. This is what I do. This is the order I bring into the world. And yes, it will hurt. Yes, you will fall short. But those failures will no longer define you. Because once your identity changes, your behavior begins to align with it. If you're still watching this, you already feel it happening. That shift, that subtle awakening. Not in the overhyped version of you, but in the ancient part of you. The calm one, the wise one, the relentless one. The version of you that doesn't scream. He builds, in silence. But listen closely. You cannot fully reclaim discipline until you forgive yourself for the time you lost. This isn't about punishing yourself or drowning in regret. This is about growing up. The immature man says, I'm broken. I need fixing. The mature man says, I was always whole. I just forgot. So remember this. There was never anything wrong with you. You just disconnected from the man you truly are. And every time you choose structure over chaos, presence over distraction, action over hesitation, you aren't becoming someone new. You're returning to the man your younger self prayed for, the man your future self will thank you for. Carl Jung believed the greatest work of your life isn't chasing success. It's individuation, becoming whole, becoming fully real, integrating every fragmented part of yourself into one clear, grounded truth. And discipline, true discipline, is the sacred path to that truth. It's how you show your unconscious mind that you're no longer at war with yourself, that you are in command again, that the king within you has returned to the throne. So I'll leave you with this question. What would your life look like if you stopped reacting to it and started declaring it? Because this is where our journey completes. We'll speak of time, of death, of the silent war that rages on when you abandon order, and of the quiet, unshakable power that awakens the moment you stop waiting to feel ready and start leading like you were born to. This was never about becoming productive. It's about becoming sovereign. And now, the final transformation is waiting. Time doesn't just pass. It accumulates. Every minute you delay your discipline doesn't just pass. It becomes part of the architecture of your life. Not simply as a missed opportunity, but as a brick in the slow, silent structure of regret. You don't just lose time. You become shaped by that loss. Carl Jung once said, "You are what you do, not what you say you'll do." That line should haunt you, not because it's cruel, but because it's the most honest mirror you'll ever face. You don't need anyone to tell you who you are. You're proving it every single day through your habits, your choices, and your avoidance. Most people don't even notice the exact moment they begin to drift. They simply wake up one day, 10 years later, and realize the man they've become is not the man they once admired. He's a quieter version, a safer version, one sculpted not by purpose, but by delay, by hesitation, by stories that sounded like wisdom but were, in truth, fear wearing a mask. You were never born lazy. You were trained to doubt your own strength. And over the years, you dulled the edge of your ambition. You softened it, polished it down, not to protect others, but to protect yourself. Because real discipline doesn't shout, doesn't demand attention, but it does change the room. And that quiet weight, it unsettles people who haven't yet risen. That's why you started hiding. That's why you let go. Because waking up meant walking alone. But what if that loneliness was a test? What if the solitude you feared wasn't punishment, but a passage? You need to understand something most men will never realize until it's too late. Every time you betray your own potential to remain comfortable, you are rehearsing your death. Not your physical death, but a spiritual erosion, the slow dimming of your fire, the fading of your will, the quiet resignation of a man who once had hunger in his eyes, but now only carries excuses. Carl Jung didn't believe we find meaning by chasing happiness. He believed meaning is found through confrontation, by facing the dragon, the chaos, the failure, the pain, and walking straight into it, willingly, without flinching. And in that confrontation, discipline becomes your sword. Not because it kills fear, but because it gives you something greater than fear, direction. Every man is disciplined. That's not in question. The real question is, to what? Some are disciplined to their distractions. Others are deeply loyal to their addictions. Many are committed, without even realizing it, to the voices of doubt they inherited and never dared to challenge. But only a few, very few, are disciplined to their becoming. And if you want to be one of them, you must understand something most never do. Discipline isn't a phase. It isn't a grind. It's a way of relating to time itself. Let me explain. Every time you choose short-term comfort over long-term growth, every time you opt for ease over effort, you're sending a silent message to time itself. I don't respect you. And like any sacred force, time responds in kind. It begins to slip away from you. You start feeling late, behind, out of sync. Not because you lack effort, but because you never truly honored what was given to you. But the moment you realign, when you begin living not with pressure, but with reverence for time, your life shifts. Not on the outside at first, but on the inside. You begin to feel a rhythm, a cadence, a calm purpose that replaces the noise. Your days stop being chaotic reactions. They become rituals. And that's what discipline evolves into at its highest form. Not willpower, not punishment, but ritual. A sacred rhythm between you and the future you've vowed to build. You wake up not out of obligation, but because you've made a promise to yourself, and you're excited to keep it. You train not to prove anything, but to remember who you are. You eat clean not to impress, but because you know your body is the living temple of your commitment. Slowly, everything begins to align. Everything starts to echo the deeper truth inside you. And one day, the man you only once imagined becoming stares back at you in the mirror. But let's be honest, this won't happen in a week. It won't come from a viral video or a single life-changing moment. Discipline isn't built through hype. It's built through grief. Yes, grief. Because to step fully into who you're meant to be, you must let the older version of you die. The one who always broke his own word. The one who hid behind someday. The one who felt empty each night, because deep down, he knew. He ran again. You have to lay him to rest, not with guilt, but with honor. Because that version of you, he tried. He did what he could. He kept you safe. He got you here. But his season is over. And when you finally stop resisting him, when you thank him instead of fighting him, you release all the energy you've been wasting pretending you're someone you're not. And in that release, you build. And with that energy, the energy you once wasted on guilt and delay, you begin to build. You build mornings that start with clarity, not chaos. You build routines that ground you, even on days when you don't feel like showing up. You build a schedule that doesn't restrict you, but liberates you. Because structure isn't your enemy, it's your armor. And the more unpredictable the world becomes, the more rare and powerful a calm, disciplined man becomes. You become that man. And it begins. Not next Monday. Not after another failure or motivational video. But right now. This breath. This heartbeat. This uncomfortable truth stirring inside you. That is your initiation. You don't need another reason. You don't need to feel ready. You are already worthy of discipline. You simply forgot. So let this be the final reminder. Carl Jung believed that wholeness isn't about adding more. It's about accepting what already exists inside you, even the parts you tried to reject, even the messy, lazy, undisciplined fragments of yourself. You're not here to escape them. You're here to lead them. And when you finally do, when your inner house is in order, you won't just feel stronger. You'll feel at peace. Because true discipline doesn't shout. It doesn't beg to be noticed. It walks quietly, daily, like a man who's finally remembered what he came here to do. So return to your vow, not tomorrow. Now, because once you do, discipline will never feel like a burden again, not because you're being forced, but because you'll finally know what it feels like to be a man who keeps his word to himself.